The case of nursing student Laken Riley captured the state and national media by storm after she was attacked on a popular running trail in Athens, Georgia. The case has also been made a political focal point, with many people believing the attack was a result of undocumented immigrants having access to our country. Following the attack, a suspect was quickly apprehended and has been awaiting trial set to take place in November of 2024. In this video, we'll be going over everything you need to know, as well as what this case means for the safety of college students and our country as a whole. To uncover all of this and more, we need to go behind the headlines. "22-year-old Laken Hope Riley was said to be kind-hearted, intelligent, and known for her infectious smile and joyful personality. She was born on January 10, 2002, to parents Jason and Allison in Marietta, Georgia. Growing up alongside her siblings Lauren, Kaylee, and Jackson, Laken's parents got divorced when she was young. Even though the children primarily lived with their mom, they continued to have a strong relationship with their father as well. Laken attended River Ridge High School in Woodstock, where she excelled in academics and sports, primarily cross country. She undoubtedly got her love for children from her mother Allison, who was a retired teacher. After high school, Laken began nannying and had dreams of working in a children's hospital as a nurse. She put these dreams in motion by attending the University of Georgia and graduating with an undergraduate degree before being accepted into the College of Nursing at the nearby Augusta University. She was also a devoted member of the Alpha Chi Omega sorority, where she was said to have a gift of making even the shyest members feel included and loved. All of these amazing characteristics makes what happened to Laken that much more tragic. The University of Georgia campus in Athens is known for its beautiful mix of historic red brick buildings and lush green landscapes. Its vibrant atmosphere, walking paths, and recreational areas make it a popular destination for not only students of UGA, but other members of the community as well. Near the East Campus is a popular hangout spot called Lake Herrick, located in Oconee Forest Park. UGA's website says that the park offers recreational, educational, and research opportunities for the university and Athens community, while preserving its 100-year-old forest. The lake is situated close to the school's intramural fields and is a place where people can utilize scenic trails and picnic areas as well. The surrounding trails are conveniently close to on and off campus housing, and according to students and community members, it has always felt like a safe place to be. That was until a fateful Thursday in February that changed everyone's perception of Lake Herrick. I mentioned before that Laken participated in cross country in high school, but she also competed in running events in college as well, such as the Athens Half Marathon. Even though Laken was attending Augusta University College of Nursing, she still lived with her friends from UGA in a common off-campus housing neighborhood, and frequently utilized the campus facilities. This included Lake Herrick, where Laken liked to go run for an easy workout. On February 22, 2024, Laken headed out from her home on Millage Avenue and made her way a few streets over to the park. It's important to note that there is the main Lake Herrick, but also a smaller pond that feeds into the lake that you can see on this map. It's not clear what time Laken left her house, but it was definitely early and sometime between 7 and 9 a.m. She told her roommate Sophia that she'd be back soon, but unfortunately, Laken never made it home. Just before 9:30 a.m., Laken's mother Allison tried calling and texting her several times, but when she got no reply, she became a little worried. Allison reached out to Sophia, who, along with their other roommates, decided to go over to the park to check on Riley and see why she wasn't answering her phone. Laken's friends went around the big and little lake, looked around the intramural fields, but they couldn't find her anywhere. After searching for a few hours, Sophia finally decided to call 911 to report Laken as missing at 12:07 p.m. Shortly thereafter, a UGA police officer named Andrew Mahaney arrived at the fields and began speaking to Sophia, who explained that Laken should have been home a long time ago. They were soon joined by two more officers who began walking the trails to look for any signs of Laken. At 12:28, as Officer Mahaney was searching the woods along the trail, he horrifically came across a partially clothed woman lying on her side in the brush. She appeared to be unconscious, and he called out Laken's name, but got no response. Mahaney approached her and checked her vitals, and based on photos provided, he was able to identify that the woman was in fact Laken Riley. He could see that she had extensive visible injuries and wasn't able to locate a pulse. With no signs of breathing, Mahaney began administering CPR. Another officer who joined the scene, named Corporal Bridges, ran to the location and assisted with CPR as well. A sergeant quickly brought over with a portable AED, or automated external defibrillator, which is used to save people who have gone into cardiac arrest. They deployed the AED and continued CPR while they waited for Athens Clarke County Fire and Emergency Services to arrive. Paramedics immediately took over life-saving efforts, but unfortunately, Laken was already gone. Based on the extent of Laken's injuries, which we will discuss later, foul play was immediately suspected to be involved. Officers with the UGA Police Criminal Investigations Division arrived at the scene soon after she was found, and they began setting up a perimeter around the scene. After Laken Riley was found near Lake Herrick, students and members of the community were terrified that a killer was on the loose. It had been nearly 30 years since a murder took place on the UGA campus, and any sense of security the residents of Athens had quickly went out the window. The university canceled classes, urged students to travel in groups, and asked everyone to avoid the school's intramural fields where Laken was found. However, it wouldn't take long for investigators to find a potential suspect. Officers located Laken's phone near her body, and they discovered that at around 9:10 a.m., she actually attempted to call 911. It's not been made public what was captured on the 911 call, but someone abruptly ended it, and it wasn't Laken. Investigators began looking into another 911 call that occurred that same morning, believing that the two incidents could have been related. Less than 1,000 feet from the crime scene, another student living in UGA housing called to report suspicious activity outside her dorm. Just before 8 a.m., she told the dispatcher that there was a peeping Tom looking in her window and trying to open the front door several times as well. UGA police responded to the dorm a few minutes later, but the man had already fled into the woods leading toward the park. Investigators decided to pull footage from the dorm and nearby apartment complex. At the time, the complex was called Salo at Azulik, Athens, but has since been renamed the Grove at 5 Points. In the footage, they noticed a suspicious man matching the peeping Tom's description walking through the neighborhood and then into the woods. He appeared to be a Latino male wearing a black baseball cap with a white Adidas logo. The hat also has white script underneath the logo and a sticker on the bill. They continued looking into more footage, which is when they saw the man dispose of something in an apartment complex dumpster. Investigators immediately went to look through the dumpster, which is where they found a bloody jacket with long dark hair on it, as well as a pair of bloody gloves. They estimated that the man disposed of these things within 30 minutes after Laken's suspected time of death. Less than 12 hours later, a police officer patrolling the apartment complex spotted a Latino male who appeared to be wearing a hat that looked identical to the one seen in the dumpster video. The officer approached the man, who identified himself as Diego Ibarra. The officer asked him for ID, and Diego handed him a UGA Food Services employee badge. Since the badge only had his first name, he asked Diego if he could provide another form of ID, and Diego agreed to go get one from his apartment. The officer followed Diego to his unit, which was only around a football field length away from where Laken Riley had been found. Diego emerged with another ID that appeared to be a green card or U.S. permanent residency card. However, the officer could immediately tell that the ID was fake due to its poor quality and the fact that the ID listed 2 different birth dates. More officers arrived on the scene and Diego was detained while they continued their investigation and waited for a search warrant for the apartment. While they were waiting, Diego's brother named Arginas Ibarra came out of the apartment holding a trash bag in his hand. Arginas began speaking with the officers and said that he had food cooking on the stove and needed to go back inside to turn it off. Officers asked for consent to enter the apartment to turn off the stove because they were afraid that he or other occupants may try to get rid of evidence. Arginas gave the officers consent, and inside he found 2 other people in the apartment. The officer asked them to go outside while he turned off the stove, and they were soon identified as another brother named Jose Ibarra and a woman named Rosabelli Elisber Flores Bello. Even though Jose was not detained at that point, after they ran his name, they quickly realized that he had an outstanding bench warrant for failing to appear in court for a prior incident. He was arrested and taken into custody, which ended up being helpful because he much more resembled the man from the dumpster footage than his brother Diego. Back at the station, police noticed that Jose was covered in what appeared to be scratches. They were quickly able to identify that he was the man in the footage, and they took fingerprints and DNA samples. Investigators were then able to match DNA located on the jacket found in the dumpster to both Jose and Laken, as well as DNA located under her fingernails, indicating that she tried to fight off the attack. They were also able to pull a thumbprint that matched Jose's off Laken's iPhone, indicating that he had pressed the button that ended the call to 911. Just one day after his initial arrest, police announced that Jose Ibarra was being charged with malice murder, 3 counts of felony murder, kidnapping, aggravated assault with intent to rape, aggravated battery, and tampering with evidence and hindering a 911 call, and peeping Tom.
We have a suspect in custody for Laken's murder. We are obtaining arrest warrants for Jose Antonio Ibarra, 26 years of age. He lives here in Athens, but is not a U.S. citizen.
It was also determined that Laken's cause of death was blunt force trauma to the head. Court documents revealed that investigators believe Jose bludgeoned her with an object, such as a rock, completely disfiguring her skull. The documents claim that he also physically prevented Laken from completing a 911 call and dragged her from the trail to a more secluded area to conceal her death. It's also believed that his intent was to sexually assault her. However, there hasn't been any more evidence made public about whether that actually took place. At his first appearance, Jose's defense team stated that they wouldn't be requesting bond, and he later entered a plea of not guilty. Now that we've covered the allegations, we need to discuss the most controversial aspects of this case. Almost immediately after Jose was arrested, the public was made aware that he and his siblings were not in this country legally and also had previous criminal rap sheets. 26-year-old Jose Ibarra was originally from Venezuela and first appeared in the United States in September of 2022. Jose and his wife Laken Franco crossed into the United States near El Paso, Texas. They were arrested and subsequently released due to lack of detention space and then placed on a bus to New York. At that time, immigration attorney Pamela Peinado stated that Venezuelans were granted special protective status in the US due to circumstances such as political unrest or national disasters. This status allows them to remain in the country temporarily for their safety. After a year later, Jose was making food deliveries when he was arrested in Queens, New York. He was charged with endangering his wife's 5-year-old son who was riding on the back of Jose's moped without a helmet. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, could have taken action at that point, but according to a spokesperson, he was released by the NYPD before a detainer could be issued. Jose and Laken ultimately broke up in November of 2023, and he decided to move in with Diego. By that point, Diego was living in Athens after entering the US illegally as well. About a month later, the brothers were detained for shoplifting at an Athens Walmart, where they took items like bacon, smoked sausage, queso fresco, and clothes. They were released after receiving a citation for misdemeanor shoplifting and never booked or taken to jail. An official from Athens Clarke County Police Department noted that officers don't have immediate access to individuals' immigration statuses. The process of identifying non-citizens with criminal charges typically occurs during booking by the responsible law enforcement agency, which didn't happen in Jose and Diego's case since they weren't officially arrested. During this time, Diego had also been arrested on a DUI charge, but the Clarke County Sheriff's Office said that undocumented individuals cannot be detained solely for their immigration status. Their policy is to notify ICE, but it's not clear whether that took place after his arrest or not. Parents of students from UGA were also upset over the fact that Diego had been hired as a dishwasher in one of the campus dining halls. In order to get the job, he presented the fake green card but was fired a few weeks later when he wasn't able to produce any more documentation. Even though Jose is the one who was accused of murdering Laken, it seems that Diego has a more violent past between the two of them. When coming into the country, he assaulted a border police officer and was arrested. ICE then placed him in an ATD, or alternative detention program, and he was required to wear an ankle monitor until his court date. However, Diego soon cut it off and left the monitor on the side of the road in Colorado. He then traveled to Athens, where he had frequent contact with the local law enforcement. He had the DUI and also a domestic violence incident where he allegedly slapped his girlfriend in the face. The officer was unable to determine who the primary aggressor was during the altercation, so neither of them were arrested. Then there was the shoplifting misdemeanor with Jose, and they were banned from shopping at Walmart for 2 years. It was also uncovered that Diego has gang affiliation with a Venezuelan group called Tren de Aragua. Officials say it's common for members of this gang to display firearms and photographs, even though it's illegal for non-citizens to possess guns in the United States. Photos of Diego with a Glock and a Smith & Wesson pistol next to a box of ammunition were uncovered from his social media. Due to all of this, UGA parents were outraged that Diego was able to work among students without a proper background check or the university confirming his identity. After all of this information about Diego and Jose came out, angry citizens began labeling Athens a sanctuary city and calling for the mayor to resign. I looked up what that exactly means, and according to a few articles online, sanctuary cities try to limit their cooperation with ICE and other federal immigration enforcement agencies. They often prioritize protection for undocumented immigrants by not inquiring about their status or reporting them to federal authorities. This is apparently in hopes that people will feel encouraged to report crimes without fear of deportation. However, critics of sanctuary cities express frustration due to concerns over public safety, arguing that these policies may allow undocumented immigrants with criminal backgrounds to evade law enforcement. They believe that by not cooperating with ICE, these cities challenge federal authority and encourage illegal immigration. During this pretty explosive press conference, Mayor Kelly Girtz said that Athens is not a sanctuary city, but well, I'll let you see how the community responded.
I've received many calls, many emails, many queries from the press in recent days about this notion of a sanctuary city, and so I want to lay some things to rest here today. This term sanctuary city doesn't have a sole legal or procedural definition. You can look in Georgia statute and you can find a clear definition for a unified government. You can look in contractual language and you can find out exactly what it means to be an SEC institution. Sanctuary city doesn't track with either of those. And so that term means different things to different people depending on the context of the discussion.
We know what it means.
Many of the elements.
Liar.
Many of the elements.
Liar.
Liar.
We're here to listen.
Liar.
You're a liar.
We're here to listen.
Liar.
There'll be time for questions.
You are guilty and got blood on your hands for this murder, sir.
Many of the aspects that are ascribed to sanctuary cities
We know what sanctuary
are
city
things
means.
that are disallowed by Georgia law.
Sanctuary policy, which is what we do.
And we contribute a document every year to the Georgia Department of Audits indicating that we do not correspond to these definitions under state law.
Yes, you do.
And no policies have been adopted
Please
by the
stop
mayor and
lying.
commission
You're
that have
insulting
created
our
sanctuary
intelligence.
city status in
Sir,
Athens.
You need to resign.
One protocol that sometimes arises,
Resign!
Resign now.
You
One
allowed
protocol.
this to happen, sir.
What's your reaction to this notion that, taxpayer dollars are essentially going to be funding the defense for this illegal immigrant, whether he's found guilty or not, he is here.
as a legislator, that set of procedural justice is not in my domain. So you'd have to ask those folks either in public defense or prosecution.
Do you have any reaction to that, just being the mayor of the city?
Don't at this time. Yes.
Mayor, Steve Gelbach from WSB TV. Some of their concerns have to do with the 2019 resolution that was passed and signed by you after you came into office. It is entitled in support of immigrants and the undocumented community here, and it does state that all statuses are welcome. Do you want to respond to that? And does that give you say it's only a term and definition, but does that give the impression that this is a sanctuary city?
I appreciate the question. Thank you very much for asking. I need to be able to answer clearly, so I'll need the voices in the room to listen. Appreciate that.
Are you going to rescind it?
What I'd like to note is that here in Athens, Clark County,
You're fired.
we center our work in the public
Fired.
sector.
You need to go, sir. We don't want to hear from you no more. You're not defending us. You're not upholding your oath of office, sir. You are lawless. You are a criminal.
I'm trying to ask a question. So your press members.
If non-members of the press
Yeah, I'm a press member too.
Might be asked to
We,
leave.
The people. We created this government and we pay your salary. You do what we want you to do, not what you want to do.
On February 26th, Governor Brian Kemp spoke about Laken's murder during his address at the Athens Chamber of Commerce. He characterized Laken's death as a consequence of ineffective federal policies and the Biden administration's failure to secure the southern border.
We need to demand justice for what happened to her. She deserves justice. Her family deserves justice. And we need justice on a national level to prevent this type of thing from happening again. Secure the border. I mean, it's not that hard to do. This is what we have feared would happen.
On February 29th, Donald Trump referenced Laken's death in a speech and at several more rallies as well.
Reports have come out, and we've been covering them, and everybody's been, and I spoke to the parents of an incredible young lady, and you saw her the other day. You saw what happened the other day in Georgia. But one of the lives that was taken from us was an incredible 22-year-old nursing student right here in Georgia, Laken Riley.
On March 7th, the House passed a bill initiated by Republicans known as the Laken Riley Act. This legislation, among other provisions, would require ICE to detain undocumented migrants accused of theft-related crimes, such as shoplifting. Later that same day, when President Joe Biden entered the House chamber to deliver his State of the Union address, Republican Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene urged him to say Laken's name. During his speech, Biden criticized Republicans for obstructing a bipartisan immigration bill while also addressing Laken's death.
Laken Riley, an innocent young woman who was killed by an illegal. That's right. But how many of the thousands of people being killed by illegals? To her parents, I say, my heart goes out to you, having lost children myself. I understand. But look, if we change the dynamic at the border, People pay these smugglers $8,000 to get across the border because they know if they get by and let into the country, it's 6 to 8 years before they have a hearing. And it's worth it taking the chance of the $8,000. But if it's only 6 weeks, the idea is it's highly unlikely that people will pay that money and come all that way, knowing that they'll be able to be kicked out quickly.
A few days later, Laken's mother, stepfather, sisters, and other friends and family attended a Trump rally where he spoke about current immigration policies. Although Laken's father, Jason, wasn't present at the rally, he too has expressed support for Trump.
Do you think a difference in immigration policy would have made a difference for Laken?
We have no idea if that would have changed anything, but he's here illegally, that he might not have been here had we had secure borders.
In a session with the Georgia State Senate, he also called on the senators to consider immigration reform.
I stand before you a heartbroken man. Part of my purpose has been taken. God gave me a beautiful daughter to father, protect, provide for, and nurture. A man with an evil heart stole her life. He was in this country and in this state illegally. My vision for every senator in this chamber is that you protect citizens from this illegal invasion. Please recognize over 1 million illegal aliens are in this state and making families nervous. Please recognize Athens Clark is a sanctuary city, and this policy and the lack of action led to the murder of my daughter. There are a few of you in this chamber that are standing up and working on a solution to protect us. For that, my family is thankful. Laken is thankful.
However, in a later interview, he voiced his frustration over the politicization of Laken's murder.
I feel like she's being used somewhat politically.
How do you feel about that?
It makes me angry. She was much better than that. She should be raised up for the person that she is.
Laken Riley's death is one of many tragedies that have sparked political debates regarding immigration. For example, 12-year-old Jocelyn Nungare was raped and murdered by 2 undocumented Venezuelan migrants in Houston, Texas. In another case, a mother of 5, Rachel Morin, was raped and murdered in Maryland by an undocumented migrant from El Salvador. Due to cases like this, the Republican National Committee launched a website called Biden Bloodbath that highlights anecdotal incidents involving migrants. However, it's important to note that not everyone sees the issue as black and white. There are other people who support comprehensive immigration reform, believe that focusing on crime committed by migrants unfairly paints all documented individuals in a negative light and ignores the bigger picture of systemic problems.
2 of the most common objections to immigration in the United States are that more immigrants lead to more crime and more people on welfare. But a closer look reveals that these objections are misguided. Native-born Americans are actually far more likely to commit crimes than either legal or illegal immigrants. For every 100,000 native-born Americans, 1,500 are incarcerated for breaking the law. Illegal immigrants are incarcerated at half that rate, and legal immigrants have rates 1/4 that of native-born Americans.
They point out that many migrants come to the U.S. to escape violence and tough living conditions in their home countries, hoping to find better opportunities for themselves and their families. This group stresses that most undocumented migrants are actually law-abiding citizens, and blaming violent crimes on their immigration status is misleading. They argue for a more balanced view of immigration issues, pushing for reforms that tackle the root causes of migration, offer pathways to legal status, and ensure community safety without scapegoating entire groups of people. Many people feel that Laken Riley's case should kickstart more discussions about safety on college campuses as well.
You know, you second guess everything. And, you wish there was more security cameras, more security where she was running. I wish she was running with friends. She decided not to run with friends that day. She usually does. I wish I could have been there to protect her. Wish it would have been me.
In 2020 alone, the U.S. Department of Education reported over 28,000 criminal offenses on college campuses, which included things like assaults, robberies, and sexual offenses. A 2019 survey by the Association of American Universities found that nearly 1 in 4 female undergraduate students experienced sexual assault or misconduct during their time in school. While violent crime rates on campuses are usually lower than in the surrounding areas, a study in the Journal of American College Health revealed that about 1 in 10 students reported experiencing some kind of violence. The National Center for Education Statistics noted that between 2010 and 2019, there were around 10 homicides on college campuses each year, which highlights the need for improved safety measures to protect students.
when UGA students return to campus for the fall semester, they'll see some changes like lights and signs, including the ones like this red placard that say UGA campus protected by UGA Police Department and campus safety camera system.
I feel like it's definitely noticeable. I've seen a lot more cop cars around. I can see their presence a lot.
UGA students say over the last few months, they've seen visible increases to campus security.
I think the best way to think about it is a continuation of projects we've been having going on for years. We've been paying attention to safety and security.
The enhancements come after nursing student Laken Riley was killed on UGA's campus in February. The university says they're investing more than $7 million into new LED lighting, fencing, and emergency call boxes to keep students safe.
This is especially true since there didn't seem to be any cameras on the trail surrounding Lake Herrick, where Laken was killed.
Now we've just come down that path, down from Jose Ibarra's apartments up toward the street. And as we stand here, one thing to note, there's no fence, there's no barrier, there's no wall between those apartments and these trails that lead to the intramural fields, which means anybody from the street can access these trails. Now, as we come across this railroad track, we come down these stairs, coming down this popular cut-through that students use to get to the trails around Lake Herrick. You can see on either side of me, the brush is very thick, it's a little shaded, and it's a little secluded. Ample opportunity for somebody to hide. Now, we get on down the trail a little bit more, and we see that it diverges off in 3 different directions. Now, as we were walking out here a little bit before, we saw 1, maybe 2 runners going from this direction down to that direction, which led us to believe this is the path that Laken Riley took down to the pond. And again, as we continue down this trail, very secluded, lots of woods, lots of brush, very dense brush. It would be hard to imagine somebody crawling in there and trying to catch somebody by the element of surprise, but we never know until more information comes out.
On September 24, 2024, District Attorney Deborah Gonzalez filed a motion requesting the use of computer-aided dispatch and the 911 calls from UGA police incident reports in the upcoming trial. The state is also seeking to utilize Laken and Jose's phone records, as well as Jose's social media records from Snapchat, TikTok, and Facebook. In response, Jose and his legal team submitted a motion to suppress this evidence, arguing that the seizure of cell phones, social media data, location information, and genetic and physical information lacked probable cause. Basically, they believe that the officer who saw Diego wearing a hat identical to the one Jose was wearing in the dumpster video didn't justify probable cause in arresting him and collecting this evidence. They are also requesting that the charges involving Laken and the Peeping Tom incident be separated into 2 separate trials. However, the state argues that they should be tried together as they took place on the same day and show Jose's state of mind when he attacked Laken. There hasn't been a decision on these motions yet, but will need to be made before the trial that's set to take place on November 13th. After Jose's arrest, his ex-wife Layling said in a statement, "He wasn't aggressive, none of that. We had problems as a couple, but our problems weren't physical. We wouldn't punch, but we did raise our voices. I want to talk to him. I have a lot of faith that this wasn't him, that there was a misunderstanding somewhere. But if he did, he has to pay for what he did, truly." The Athens chief of police also said that Jose had no prior history of violence and described the situation as an isolated crime of opportunity with no motive. However, many people disagree and say the fact that Jose was peeping, trying to enter a student's dorm room, and then brutally attacked and removed Laken's clothing shows that the motive was more than likely sexual. Neighbors in Jose's apartment complex stated that they've seen Laken walking to the trails around Lake Herrick several times. They also said that Jose sat outside on his porch at all hours of the day, and it's possible he could have been watching and learning Laken's routine. However, we'll have to wait until the trial to see if there's evidence of this, or if Laken was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. As this case became enmeshed in the nation's bitter debate over immigration, it's been easy for some people to forget that Laken's death is more than just a talking point to garner votes on either side. At her memorial in Woodstock, over 1,000 people came together in the cold and rain, which goes to show how loved she was and the impact she had on countless lives. There's no telling how many more people she would have been able to help if she'd been given a chance to fulfill her dreams of becoming a nurse. In an emotional speech, one of her sorority sisters had this to say.
Tell your friends that you love them and never miss an opportunity for a sweet treat, one of Laken's favorite pastimes, and scream the lyrics to your favorite song as loud as you can. Be kind. Catch up with your friends and strive to be the type of person that Laken was.
One of Laken's best friends and roommates, named Connolly, wrote in an Instagram post, "You were supposed to cross the finish line with me for our next marathon. You were supposed to stand next to me at my wedding. You were supposed to save so many lives. You were supposed to be the aunt to my children. It was not supposed to be like this. I find peace in knowing how strong your faith was in God and how your actions reflected Him in everything you did. I'm not sure how I will continue this life without you by my side, but I will let everyone know of the perfect, beautiful, hilarious, smart, kind, and driven human that Laken Riley was. Laken Riley's murder was a result of yet another senseless act of violence. This situation has opened up conversations about how this happened and what needs to be done going forward to prevent tragedies like this from taking place in the future. However, I also think it's important that we don't lose sight of what's most pressing to Laken's friends and family, which is getting her justice and seeing her killer behind bars. As the state is gearing up to head to trial, I'll be keeping a close eye to bring you any important updates and hopefully a conviction. Please let me know what you think about this case, and until next time, stay safe.